I once saw a Twitter post comparing Captain Marvel and Ben 10, and a creator on TikTok said, name 5 Captain Marvel villains besides Sivana, Black Adam, and Mr. Mind. And I said the 7 deadly sins. I mean, there are more than 5, right? But still, I paused to think, and really, I couldn't. Even, here's what another creator says, and his comment section just straight, this is the entire Shazam mythos.
To Shazam as a character, the character I like, but dude, his villains are so forgettable. They're all Z tier except Black Adam. I'm sorry, but no one cares about Mr. Mind or Dr. Zavanna.
Bro, just look at the comment section. It's just straight dissing. Like, I cannot let these guys go on slandering my goats and the world built behind him. But here is the thing, okay? A character is only as iconic as the world built around them. The fictional city, the supporting cast, the villains, all are elements needed to make the character thrive. And if you've only been in the background, well, these are the kind of situations that you'll be put in as a character. And he's in this situation because of Geoff Johns. Let's not lie. Captain Marvel villains are dope, right? And it's the writer's fault that we aren't aware of them. They've just been giving us Sivana's daughter for a while, but I'm here to change that by reminding you of his rogues gallery, uplifting new rogues, correcting old rogues, and changing the roles of some rogues and bringing back a forgotten rogue. If you remember, when I first started posting about Captain Marvel on this channel, I said I won't only bring suggestions, but solutions. So let's get into it. When they say Shazam villains, I am so very sure the first character that comes to your mind by default is Black Adam. Besides the obvious color scheme on Adam and Billy, it's hard for him to not be memorable as Billy's most iconic villain. But what if I told you Mans wasn't a villain at all? Okay, before some people will say I'm trying to force a narrative or push what I want onto this character, I humbly ask you that you check out this video to see the true history of Black Adam, not that New 52 crap you've consumed. And remember, the stories in this video are canon again, so I urge you to watch it just to get Adam's background, then come back to this video. Now that that's out of the way, first question. Why is Black Adam a villain? Or why do you believe he's a villain? What makes him evil? I'm sure some of you say his thirst for more power. But besides that, what's his point of being evil? Unless you forget, he started out as a hero. So why would he be evil? You see? No credible answer. You yourself can't even think of a reason as to why he's evil. So why do you see him as a villain as opposed to an anti-hero? Sure, I mean when he's released from sealing or returns from banishment, he can be angry with the wizard and his new champion. But after that, what then? What's the next step? Adam is not a regular bad guy that wants cash or just wants people dead. After getting beat, he'd just go back to his palace in Kandak, where Billy doesn't disturb him, Shazam the wizard doesn't disturb him, no one does. So what's his motive for being a bad guy? If you can't answer these questions, well, I'm sorry to say, but you've just proved to yourself that Black Adam isn't a villain. Now, if you've watched this video, you see exactly why Adam was perceived as a villain, but I'll leave it to you to see it so you understand. But that brings me into my topic, changing the role of one of his rogues. Adam is simply a mirror for Billy to look into. Should Billy be overcome by grief and rage, and should his life become any worse, he could end up like Adam. And for Adam, should he have been better when he was younger, he would have been like Billy. They are mirrors staring back at each other. One seeing the life that he could have, should he take certain actions, and the other seeing the life that he could have had, should he have not taken certain actions. That's what the relationship between them should be. Yes, Adam should be a ruthless killer if it's in his best interest. Yes, he can ally himself with the Legion of Doom should he serve his purpose. But if need be, he will be a hero because it's in his best interest. In Infinite Crisis, he was on the side of the heroes. That was way before The Rock, mind you. For people who thought that The Rock was trying to push anything, you just don't know comics. In Infinite Crisis tie-in, one of the Infinite Crisis tie-in, I forget the name, he was on the side of the Legion of Doom. In Final Crisis, he was on the side of the heroes. In Dark Crisis of Infinite Earths, he was on the side of the Legion of Doom. His alliances lie with his best interests. That's what you should be playing at with this character. Not trying to force a 4,000-year-old man to be beefing with a teenager. And for what reason? We don't even know. I feel like the writers want Adam to continue to play this evil mirror rival role for Billy, and they're scared that if they let him lean more into his anti-hero role, it'll leave a vacuum. But it's a vacuum that can be so easily filled. It's amazing and disappointing how this hasn't been done yet. And that brings me to my next topic, uplifting new rogues. In my humble opinion, instead of this constant effort to make Black Adam the antithesis to Billy's Captain Marvel, Sabbac should be elevated to that position. I mean, think about it. Solomon, Hercules, Atlas, Zeus, Achilles, Mercury, then Satan, Aim, Belial, Beelzebub, Asmodeus, and Craterus. I mean, how hasn't this happened? If I were to do Sabbac, right, I'd make him akin to Cletus Cassidy, in the sense that he's sadistic as fuck with no regard for human life. He sees the worst in humanity, and that is why he was chosen to be Sabbac by an evil wizard or by the princes of hell themselves. And I know it's cliche, but it's the simple things that work best, no? If I were to write it, right, it'd be a setup where, like in his regular life, Billy's regular life, he knows the character that will become Sabbac. Whether the character is at his school or at Wiz Radio, but Billy knows this character personally. And he should be like all those charismatic evil people, maybe like Johan from Monster, so that when Billy finds out about him, it'd be emotional for him, as in the betrayal of someone he thought he knew. You understand me? You see how simple it is to create an interesting story, but because writers want to keep this kiddie storytelling, the mythos can't evolve. It cannot. It's the same thing with content creation. Sure, you can make one style of content and that might blow you up, but after a while, after you keep doing that one thing, your numbers will eventually drop and you'll be getting the same traction you used to get before. You understand me? Now, am I saying to make the Shazam mythos grim and dark? Hell no. That's not what the character or his mythos is about. But what I'm saying is, let us challenge him. Billy Batson is known to be the biggest Boy Scout in DC, even more than Superman. Remember, he was chosen because of that pure heart of his. So let's challenge a character who always sees the good in humanity, who believes that everyone can change or everyone is good. Let's put him against someone who sees humanity for what it truly is. That evil wins in the end, that there's no hope, nothing to look forward to, everything is in vain. Isn't this better than dinosaurs from space? Like, no hate to Mark Waid, but that was an storyline. That paper bomb pissed me off, guy. Okay, and so you see, not only will you fill the vacuum left by Black Adam, you can now add a beautiful physical battle with emotional weight and psychological reasoning, which will not only break Billy Batson mentally, physically, and emotionally, but cause your readers to think and feel. God, please, somehow, some way, let me just pitch this to DC. I already have a story prepped and I'm ready to go all I need is the floor, but we'll see. Moving on to my next topic, correcting his old villains. I'm so happy we are done with the woke era of comics, where they were doing this whole girl boss stuff. Because tell me why, in any universe, is Sivana's daughter the main Sivana villain? What are we doing? Like, genuinely, what are we doing? The Shazam mythos is barely mainstream. We don't have time for all this girl boss nonsense. Only in the event of Sivana's death would I say his daughter can assume his role. Otherwise, there is absolutely no reason why our main Sivana in canon would be his daughter. Not only that, they just erased her twin brother. So not only did they remove Thaddeus, they took her twin too because they wanted the girl to have all the shine. I don't get it. I don't understand. Sivana isn't even mainstream to be doing this shit. Why not replace Lex Luthor with Lena Luthor and see how that turns out? I have my issues with the writer of the Shazam run after Mark Waid left, and I'll probably talk about it in another video. But back to the topic of correcting his rogues, the first thing to do is bring back Thaddeus Bodog Sivana, the wickedest scientist in the world. A man of high intellect, someone comparable to Lex Luthor, and a respectable member of the villain community in the DC universe. Do you know the last time he appeared in canon? 2021 Asian Heritage Special, when Monkey King was being introduced. What the actual fuck? It's like the last time you saw Lex Luthor or the Joker was in a Pride special, and they haven't been shown in canon for 5 years, and instead they were replaced with Punchline and Lena Luthor. What the fuck? The most iconic Captain Marvel villain, even more than Black Adam, and you relegate him out of the universe. What are we doing? It just shows how little care is put in for the Shazam mythos. Because what's the point? What's the genuine point? The first course of action is to bring Sivana back and put that big brain of his to use. In my personal opinion, Sivana is top 5 smartest humans ever. Do you know he built an artificial rock of eternity? Sure, this happened on another Earth, but it's still Sivana. There was no amp, no nothing, just his mind. Why is he being replaced? Oh, I know why. Girl boss. And it's not like his daughter wasn't being used before Jerry Ordway made the power of Shazam. It was his family. It was the Sivana family versus the Marvel family. Sivana versus Billy. The boy versus Junior. The girl versus Mary. I don't even know her name, for fuck's sake. So you could have done this instead of outright replacing Sivana. It just shows they don't care. That's why everyone in DC got their history restored, with the sole exception of the Marvel family. Seems rubbish. Next, the 7 deadly sins. Now, I'm sure upon hearing that name, most people think about these guys from their anime, right? And so when I was thinking about it, I wondered, why don't the 7 deadly sins have human hosts to make them like recurring villains? You understand me? Have human hosts and be some kind of villain group trying to corrupt the champion or something. You know how cold the Akatsuki was? Maybe something like that. Because the 7 deadly sins just break out occasionally, then they get sealed, then they break out, then they get sealed, and on and on and on. But this time, why don't we give them motive? They want to spread their influence all over the world. And so they possess different people that best represent their sins. Let's say greed is in a politician. Pride is in a celebrity. You understand me? Things like that. And so we can have stories where Billy is literally fighting the law because the sin of greed in a politician passes a law against Captain Marvel and other heroes enforce it. And like the celebrity possessed by pride endorses it. Things like these instead of the stone statues. Sure, they will be captured at some point, but it will be darn nice to see the Council of Sin and them pulling the strings against Captain Marvel. Doesn't that sound more interesting and better than whatever things we've been getting this past decade? And to my next topic, reminding you about his old villains. So when they say list 5 Shazam villains, you know what to say. Mr. Mind, the world's wickedest worm. I wouldn't touch his character. It is fantastic. It is fantabulous even. A real David and Goliath story with him and Captain Marvel, showing that even the smallest of things left unattended can cause the biggest of problems. It was Mr. Mind that created the Monster Society of Evil, and if I'm not mistaken, I'm not too sure on this, but I think they were the first villain group in comic book history, if I'm not mistaken, and it was Mr. Mind that created them. Mr. Mind is also one of the biggest minds in the galaxy. I would kill to see a Mr. Mind and Brainiac team up. And don't forget, he literally has a multiversal final form called Hyperfly, where he was literally consuming realities. And if the writers can just lock in and restore the history of the Captain Marvel mythos, you can literally make this an arc where Mind is trying to restore himself to that power. I'm literally giving you ideas and hints, some from my own personal projects. If anyone watching is a potential DC writer, just take all of this into account. I beg you. I beg you, bruh. Next, Blaze and Satanus. People see them more as Superman villains, but when was the last time you saw Supes face them? And the characters are the literal children of the wizard Shazam, so it makes sense for them to be a part of Billy's rogues. If you want to deep dive into that history, be sure to watch this video. And it won't even be bad for both Superman and Captain Marvel to have common rogues in both of their galleries. It will lead to exciting crossovers, And now, I know it seems like we are dealing with the forces of hell a lot, but lest you forget, Billy is the champion of the gods and a force for good, which would automatically make him an enemy or a threat to Hades and its inhabitants, which leads me to my next guy, Neron. Neron has been vying for Billy's pure soul, so why don't we make him a recurring in Billy's life? Always trying to make a deal with him. We can say Neron was responsible for Sabak, like he was one that handpicked the character that would become Sabak and just cause mayhem in Fawcett City, all in an attempt for Billy's pure soul. And we can have a team with Neron, Blaze, Sabak, and the 7 deadly sins called Legion. Akin to that Bible story where all the demons were inside one guy and they said that we are Legion. Things like that. And Billy literally has to fight the forces of hell, not just to protect Earth, but also his pure soul, because it's the forces of hell we are talking about. They'll try to make him go against his code as a hero. The opportunities are endless. Someone just has to care enough to make it happen. Next, the Council of Merlin. This group was introduced during the trials of Shazam because they had their own candidates who they wanted to pass the trials so they can control the power of Shazam. Now, we can bring them in as a group trying to find a way to steal the power from Billy, feeling that because they are so rooted in magic as the Council of Merlin, they deserve the power more than some boy. Things like that. Maybe we can take elements from the Court of Owls and apply it to them, Oh, how I wish DC was still doing that thing where they will let inexperienced writers with good ideas come and learn under them, and then they turn their ideas into actual comics. But man, we'll see. Anything is possible. Next, Aunt Minerva, King Cole, Ibak, Crocodile Man, Captain Nazi. I say Captain Nazi because he's essential to Freddie Freeman's origin. These are all golden age villains that can bring more lighthearted stuff, but still tense adventures to balance out all the hellish stuff I just made mention of. Mr. Banjo can also be reintroduced into the mythos. Maybe he can be a Pied Piper kind of character with that banjo, because this is history is really funny looking. Bring back the 3 faces of evil trapped within the Rock of Eternity, forever trying to get out. Maybe that can even lead to a Captain Marvel-centered event like War of the Gods, And it's just the little things that make up good stories, wallahi. And I came up with all of this on the spot. When I was writing my script, I came up with it on the spot. The writers don't want to put time or effort for this character. Their mind just defaults to boy in a man's body and they start doing crap. It's freaking annoying. And the DC blackout has inspired me because they clearly didn't go unheard. There are ongoings for Static, Steel, and Vixen, just like that. So as a Captain Marvel fan, we shouldn't just be quiet. But even at that, if we do get an ongoing, please let it be someone that genuinely cares for the mythos, not that last writer. I have my issues with that book, bro. And finally, this leads me to my last topic, bringing back a forgotten rogue. Now, piece of history here. The name Shazam actually used to be Shazamo. Solomon, Hercules, Atlas, Zeus, Achilles, Mercury, and Ogar. Everyone grab your popcorn. It's time for a history lesson. Thousands of years ago, Ogar was a young god and apprentice of the wizard Shazam. He was one of the ancient champions whose powers would one day be bestowed upon Captain Marvel. And for a time, the wizard even altered his own name to Shazamu to reflect Ogar's place among them. Ambitious and arrogant, Ogar refused Shazam's command to defend a small nation from an invading tyrant, believing that a young and vigorous deity like himself should lead rather than an aged wizard. He then openly challenged Shazam's authority. The battle proved disastrous for Ogar as he was no match for Shazam's immense power. So he was defeated and he was cursed with cloven hooves and he was banished to live among mortals. In an act of shame, the wizard stripped the letter O from his name, even tearing it from his throne, making his name Shazam instead of Shazamo. And so, before departing, Ogar waited outside Shazam's temple and he overheard a prophecy. Shazam foretold that he would perish in the 20th century and be succeeded by a boy named Billy Batson, who would become Captain Marvel and wield the combined might of the ancient champions. Realizing that by then only a single champion would stand against him, Ogar chose to remain hidden until that era arrived. Soon after his exile, Ogar sought to make Cersei his queen. When he conquered the world, she rejected him though, and unable to harm women directly because of the limitations of his magic, Ogar devised a more subtle form of revenge. He granted Cersei immortality. The gift preserved her life but not her youth, and after 2 centuries, she had become grotesquely old and disfigured. Bitter over the scorn she received from men, Cersei embraced witchcraft and mastered the art of transforming men into animals. And when Ogar finally emerged in the 20th century, he established the cult of the curse and repeatedly clashed with Captain Marvel while seeking new followers. Eventually, he encounters Cersei once more on a remote island. Using her magic, she transformed him into a boar, causing him to plunge into a deep chasm where he was presumed dead. Ogar survived, however, and after years of painstaking magical efforts, succeeded in restoring his original form. He later joined the Monster Society of Evil, only to discover that the Marvel family had learned the one weakness of his powers, that he could not directly affect women. As a result, Mary Marvel was frequently used to confront Ogar. Now, Ogar's powers are really cool. First, since he's a god, he's immortal. He also has strength and durability that are on par with that of Captain Marvel. And he has vast magical powers that let him do almost anything he can think of, like create things out of thin air, fly, set people on fire, teleport, hypnotize people, etc. He only has 2 limits to his powers. First, whenever he uses a spell on someone, that particular spell will never work on them again. Second, he can't use his powers to harm women. However, he can still affect women with his magic as long as he doesn't physically harm them. I like that he's really powerful and that he can do so many things with his powers. It's entertaining that he's a big threat, and now he has the cult, which is another pseudo-villain group for Billy to face. Like, how does a character like this exist and writers haven't pulled him out of the woodworks? Instead, Geoff Johns was there giving us magic lands. And I know in Geoff Johns' head, he thought he had created DC's version of the 10 Realms from Marvel. Man, I hate the New 52 so much. And so you see, there are interesting villains which would give Billy trials and tribulations physically, mentally, and emotionally. And these are just the existing villains. Someone could even make some brand new villains that would be just as good as the old ones. And so, like, even looking at a character like Ogar, did you hear his limitations? That he cannot affect women, and when he uses a spell on you once, it won't work again. Do you know how interesting a battle between him and Captain Marvel would be? Or a battle between Ogar and the Justice League? Do you know how creative you have to get? Maybe that's the reason they don't want to do it, because the amount of work they have to put into it would be too much. God, these guys they are intentionally not giving us good stories, and it's about time we stop taking their crap. Do you understand me? And so I hope I've enlightened you today on Captain Marvel's villains. And to you, aspiring writer, or whoever is watching out there, do your research and elevate Captain Marvel. If I can't, and if you ever see these things in any Shazam comics in the future, I want you to know it was me, the author of this channel, that was writing that book. Number 1, the real wizard Shazam, as in Jebediah, coming back using Limbo as a plot point. Adam taking on a huge anti-hero role. Yes, he may help Billy from time to time, but his allegiances rely on his best interests. Number 3, Billy's evil rogue trinity will be Sabak, Mr. Mind, and Dr. Savannah, not his daughter. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I end my video here today. I found this interesting TikTok about Captain Marvel's rogues, and that's what I'll be using to close my video. Make sure you follow this guy. It was a really good edit. And yeah, peace out. And just know that Captain Marvel villains are dope. They just don't want to use them. Never forget that. Never forget that.
Put her down. Revert to your mortal form, and I will prove a benevolent deity. And then you'll just kill me. I will.
I've come here during the season of giving to give you what you deserve.
In place of a Dark Lord, you would have a queen!
All shall love me and despair!
Unleash hell on earth. Speak our name.
Sabak.
You assume there's only one way to gain magic. No, no, no.
So where were